With Flo Villamino. Hi there, Flo. Let's start off with the latest events in Hong Kong, moving quite quickly now.
That's right. Violent clashes between police and pro-democracy protesters. This is a photo of that on the front page of the Wall Street Journal today with the headline, the Hong Kong protests are heating up. Police accused of beating a student. And this is, of course, something we were focusing on already yesterday. A video went viral that appears to show several police officers beating up a protester who was identified as Ken Tsang while his hands were bound with plastic cuffs. Now, the South China Morning Post is taking a look at the repercussions of this video. That video was beamed around the world, and it really puts the Hong Kong police in a bad light. And so you can see here they're talking about an image problem for the police. An inquiry has been launched into that incident, but the South China Morning Post says that for now, none of the officers that were identified in that video have actually been suspended. But it really does make the police look bad. And there's a cartoon, in fact, that you can see right here in the South China Morning Post that's mocking the police's excessive use of force. You can see one officer saying, "But I distinctly heard you say pepper liberally, then beat thoroughly before grilling." And his superior, head in his hands, is saying, "Well, I was actually ordering a steak from the canteen."
Okay, papers in mainland China much more critical of the pro-democracy protesters, though.
That's right. It's interesting to see the difference between the media. Let's take a look at the front page of the China Daily today. It says that the Hong Kong's leader described what it calls the unlawful street assemblies that halted traffic as a plot that was hatched more than a year ago. So it sounds a lot like a conspiracy theory here, but China Daily is very critical of this pro-democracy movement that it says is hurting Hong Kong society. And then check out this piece. This is an opinion piece in China Daily today that says that Hong Kong should avoid the democracy trap, like Egypt, Libya, and Ukraine recently fell in that trap recently, according to this piece. According to this piece, those countries thought that they were going to have a great future, but instead what they have today are deteriorating living standards and increasing insecurity. And let's take a closer look at this drawing here. You can see Uncle Sam handing out democracy ice creams. If we can go back to that drawing, and you can see that Hong Kong, a little boy is tempted, but in the background, other children who ate that ice cream are actually sick.
Okay, quite a different situation in Hong Kong from North Africa, but that's to be debated another time, perhaps. Let's move on to the States, where there's a lot of focus on Ebola. This after a second nurse has fallen ill and been confirmed as having the virus.
That's right. Quite an alarming headline on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Once again, it says that Texas is warning of more Ebola cases. So that nurse in Dallas, Amber Joy Vinson, it was confirmed that she did have Ebola on Tuesday night. She was among the medical personnel that was treating Thomas Eric Duncan, the librarian who was the first case to be diagnosed in the United States. Now, papers are trying to figure out how she caught the virus and also who she might have been in contact with, because there's one pretty worrying detail, and it's the fact that on Monday, so the day before she was diagnosed, she took a flight from Cleveland to Dallas. You could actually read about it in a lot of papers. I pulled out this article from the Dallas Morning News. Before she boarded, she did contact the Center for Disease Control and Prevention because she had a slight fever. But you can see the headline here. It says the CDC didn't tell her she could not fly. That's according to a government spokesman. The CDC has asked all 132 passengers on that flight to get in touch with them as soon as possible.
And officials over in the United States really concerned about panic spreading now. There is quite a lot of panic, isn't there?
That's right. And a lot of people wonder if the U.S.'s protocol is really watertight. I pulled out a cartoon from the Washington Post. You can see Uncle Sam here saying, "We have the necessary safeguards in place," but there's an asterisk there. It says maybe. A lot of people are really wondering, is the protocol effective? Now, Obama has come out saying there is a limited risk of an outbreak in the U.S., and he recently visited with medical personnel at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta, where that nurse has been transferred. Before she was transferred, though, he visited with medical personnel. And look at this quote. You can read about it in the Washington Post. He says, "I hugged and kissed medical staff that had been treating an Ebola patient, and I felt perfectly safe doing so." So it seems like he's trying to reassure everybody there.
Okay, a real feeling of paranoia all the same, though, among the general public. And some newspapers are looking at some of the darker consequences of this.
That's right. The Daily Beast reports about what it calls Ebola racism, and it says it's reached a new low. And it reports about a community college just outside of Dallas called Navarro College that started rejecting international students from countries with, quote, confirmed Ebola cases, so mainly African students. But they're also rejecting students from Nigeria, which is a country that actually hasn't been that affected by Ebola and that's been quite effective at treating their patients.
On Monday, I think it's going to be officially clear of Ebola if there are no new cases.
And to quote the article, it says that Nigerians face no greater threat than we face in the U.S. And perhaps this community college should stop accepting Texans because, after all, they're quite affected as well.
There absolutely are. Lots of rumours and paranoia about this story. Thanks very much for now, Flo Villamino, our press reviewer here on France 24. We're going to take a short break. Coming up, updates on all our top news stories. Plus, in our special focus report, we're looking into how Chinese authorities are working on the mainland to stop activists spreading the word about the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong there.